Hi, I'm Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, and here again with Body, Mind, Spirit. And I'm very excited today because we're going to be interviewing JJ Virgin. She is not only a 4-time New York bestseller author, but she's a fitness Hall of Famer and a triple board certified health practitioner. So I'm very excited to be welcoming with us celebrity fitness and nutrition expert, JJ Virgin.
Hi, good to be here.
You know what? I'm so excited, especially because we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions, because everybody sets those New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year, and then they make it really good for about a week, and then things kind of fizzle out. So you have written a number of books, which I think are really just great about, number one, a lot of the things that we think we're doing for our health and fitness and nutrition aren't the right things.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Where do we start?
Well, here's what I hope, Betsy. What I hope is that we will just dump the whole New Year's resolutions, because I don't know about you, but the minute I do that to myself, it's like the little naughty, bratty 5-year-olds going, I'm going to immediately do the opposite of what I vowed I was going to do. Case in point, every year it would be like, okay, I'm going to do yoga, and there's no way I was going to do yoga. So now I do yoga because I never made that New Year's resolution. Instead, I really created more of a big why. And I think for us, if our big why was to say, okay, I'm going to decide that self-care is my theme for 2021, then I'm going to put myself, my health first, because by recognizing that if I do that, I can actually do better for my family, do better in my career, do better with my community. So that's the step one. Then all of these things that are really, when you look at it, small steps you have to do all along the way, those become easy, because it's amazing what we get accomplished in this next year, but we're not going to accomplish it in this next week, right? And this next week, it's really just making that decision.
And that's actually true. And I read someplace that once you put restrictions on yourself, like you said, that naughty part of the brain comes out, you actually set up this reward system. So like, if you go all right, I'm going to give up eating chocolate, then you go and you eat that chocolate, you actually stimulate portions of your brain that go, oh, that was good. I did something bad. Mm-hmm. And now you're rewarding yourself for doing that bad behavior. So it's harder to stick with things.
It is. So the reframe really is to think, okay, so I'm going to put my self-care at the top of the list. Wow, what a concept. I'm deciding that my self-care is not selfish, it's selfless. And then what do I need to do? And my repositioning on all of this is to position yourself when we think about the fact that your body is not a bank account, right? The whole calories in, calories out thing is silly, that it's a chemistry lab, and that you're really a scientist. You're a detective, a health detective for your own chemistry lab. And this next year is just going to be one science experiment after the next to really figure out which diets work best for you, what time you should be eating, what's best exercise, right? What type of sleep and when. So all of that gets put together, but it doesn't start the first of the year and you go, okay, now I'm going to start intermittent fasting. I'm going to take my supplements. I'm going to make sure I get 8 hours of sleep. I'm going to wear those biohacking glasses. I'm going to start yoga. I'm going to do meditate. I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
It's funny when you talk about the calories in and calories out, I think of, I've dieted, probably did every diet known to man, but I'm thinking back of when I did Weight Watchers, and I actually would sit there and count my points, and I figure out if I eat chocolate cake, how many points of chocolate cake can I do to get within my points for the day? And then the rest of the day I'll eat vegetables, which obviously is probably the worst thing you can do for yourself.
You were a hacker early on. You were a Weight Watchers hacker. I will tell you what I did. I forget which diet it was. They told you what you could eat in a day. Well, I'm very goal oriented and ambitious. So when they told me what I could eat in a day, I ate it in the first hour, figuring, all right, look at all the time I just saved, except, 4 or 5 hours later, you're now hungry again. So, right? These things that disconnect you from really understanding if you're hungry, if what you ate actually even felt good, right? I mean, we get so far away from that when we think of points and calories. And that's what we really have to stop focusing on, because, you look at even things like artificial sweeteners that have no calories, yet they can cause weight gain. So clearly it's not just calories that are creating the issues here.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, there are certain foods that we all are eating thinking we're being healthy and that we're going to lose weight, but really are sabotaging our health and our weight loss. What are those foods that we should be really second guessing about eating?
This all happened because early on, I started out in this world as an exercise physiologist. So I was working out with people, and everyone who was hiring me at the time wanted to lose weight. And they wanted to lose weight by working out, not changing their diet. Well, if you want to lose weight, really the first thing you need to do is change what's at the end of your fork, right? Exercise is really what helps you keep the weight off. It changes your metabolic rate. I say it's like having a higher interest credit card. It's going to spend more calories, right? It's going to cost more. So what I realized really quickly was that you could not out exercise a poor diet, and that I had to start looking at food. And so as I was looking at it back then it was all about eating super low fat. And I quickly discovered that that was not working with my clients. They were counting calories and eating low fat. And I remember I had one client who literally would eat 600 to 800 calories a day. She was obese and just could not lose the weight, but she was eating all of these like diet foods, butter buds, diet sodas, like just gross things in packages that were making her hold on to weight. So I started to look at this and go, all right, what if we're following the wrong set of rules? Again, what if our body is not a bank account? What if it's a chemistry lab and food is the first piece of information to that chemistry lab that's really going to decide whether you store calories as fat or burn them off as fat? I know what I want to be, a fat burner, right? And so what does that look like? And what was interesting was I started working with a lab company, and I was teaching doctors how to read these labs with their patients. And one of the labs we were using was something called a food sensitivity test. And so what would happen was people would come into the office and they would complain about gas and bloating and headache and weight gain and cravings and skin issues and fatigue and joint pain and belly fat. And so we would have them take this test. It took 3 weeks for the test results to come back. So they had nothing to do for 3 weeks, right? So they take the test, they come back in 3 weeks. And pretty much as I started to look at more and more of these tests, these people were sensitive, and gluten was a different type of test, but they were sensitive to gluten, eggs, and dairy. Then the next level were corn, soy, and peanuts. And so after doing this for a while, I thought, they've got 3 weeks before the test comes back. Why don't I just pull out all of those things that are the most common problems? And then when they come back, if some of them weren't an issue, we could add them back. So I started doing that. And what was crazy was, because we knew when we pulled these foods out, they'd come back a week later and they'd usually drop like 7 pounds. Their gas and bloating went away. And it completely changed the way they thought about food, because they'd connected the dots between what they were eating and how they feel, which Weight Watchers and those other things, to me, they completely disconnect you from that information that food is giving you. And so what happened was I started to realize as people came back in that they felt like whether they took the test or not, we were getting the same results. In fact, we were getting even better results, because sometimes the tests wouldn't really indicate if someone had an issue with one of these foods. But when you took it out, gave your body a time to detox, heal the gut, reset, and find that new normal, find what feeling good really feels like, we could come back in, test that food, and they go, wow, my weight just shot up 2 pounds, or wow, now I'm super tired, or my skin broke out, or I'm bloated. And, once you know that about a food, like if you know that you eat cheese and your skin breaks out and you're get a headache, you think twice about eating it, right?
It's funny because I know that I have an issue with pizza. Yet I still will eat it, but I know that I prepare myself. I go, okay, you know what? I'm going to have like joint pains and feel like crap for a couple of days afterwards. But, I know when I'm like looking at losing weight, I go, okay, you know what? We got to cut the pizza out of the diet.
But here's the thing with pizza. You go, okay, pizza. So the most common foods that we can become intolerant of, and I'm using intolerant as much more of an umbrella term. It's probably not an allergy. Those things we tend to know. That's the person who has the peanut allergy. You open them up on the plane and they can't breathe. It's that immediate response. But sensitivities or intolerances can be due to a variety of different factors, both hormonal, immune, etc. And most likely within your pizza, because the top ones are gluten, dairy, corn, soy, eggs, peanuts. And then I had to put sugar and artificial sweeteners in there because they create a lot of the problems with your gut that then create these intolerances. And also I discovered, Betsy, if I didn't pull sugar out and I took those other foods out, then people just ate sugar. I was like, well, that just didn't do anything. That just made it worse. But if you look at pizza and you go, okay, is it the dairy? Is it the gluten? Is it the eggs? Which is it? And then you go, you can actually make an amazing pizza, gluten-free pizza, dairy-free pizza, because we do it all the time. And so you figure out which foods work for you, which foods don't, and then you do simple, healthy swaps. Like, if you found that you love the crunchiness of popcorn, like popcorn is my trigger food downfall. I can't touch it. Like I could never go, if I touched it at a movie theater and they have those bottomless things of popcorn, I'm never leaving. I will stay there. So once you know that about yourself, you go, well, what else would have like a crunchy little salty thing that wouldn't do me in? Or let's say you love, ice cream. Well, you can get coconut ice cream with 1 gram of sugar in it. So there's all these simple swaps that won't hurt you, that still satisfy you for what you're looking for, right? And you don't feel like you're deprived. And that's the real key thing. I mean, it's like if you're feeling you're deprived, this isn't going to work.
And I think that's too, is like people, when you do the all or nothing kind of like, it doesn't last for very long because you want to go back.
A couple hours.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I go. So when I put together the Virgin Diet and pulled out the 7 foods, what I did, and here, honestly, if you were going to do a really smart progression of how to eat, because I view this in this way, we really need to have 2 different terms. Diets are something that you should do short term to get a therapeutic result, to learn something about yourself. So maybe you need to deal with your unstable blood sugar or your gas and bloating. So you go on a diet to do some healing, to learn which foods work, which foods don't. Then you have the way that you eat, right? Right now they mean the same thing, but that's when I think of diets, that's where I would go. And really, if you think about it, the very first thing we should do before we start to look at what we should take out of our diet is let's look at what we should put into our diet. Like, can we add in more non-starchy vegetables? I have become fierce with the cauliflower rice and the broccoli rice because you can throw them into anything, right? I mean, it's so good. You can decarb your mashed potatoes or your wild rice. You can make crusts with them. They can go in soups. So you start to look at how can I add more non-starchy vegetables in? How can I make sure that I'm getting in more pure spring water, iced green tea, those types of things? How can I get more fiber into my diet? How can I get healthier oils, cleaner proteins? So first thing you do is put those good things in. That's step 1. Then you make the swaps. So it's not so much as I'm not going to eat these things. It is I'm going to swap the cow's milk dairy for coconut or oat milk or one of those things. I'm going to swap the gluten tortillas for those cassava tortillas. And honestly, when I started doing this was super hard. You had to go to these specialty stores. It was really expensive. Now it's really easy to find alternatives. And really the best alternative is the least process. Like if you unprocess your diet and look for the foods that don't have to say no gluten or no sugar because like it's an avocado, right? It's not going to have it on there. That's your best of all, of course.
So this has been wonderful. Well, we're going to take a commercial break and then we'll be back with some more tips.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made by good people. That's why I love Zona Plus, the world's first software-controlled handheld device that improves cardiovascular health using isometric exercise. You're going to love yours too. I use mine almost every day to keep my blood pressure right where it should be. It also helps maintain healthy blood and oxygen flow and bone density. And it increases the production of nitric oxide, which also increases blood flow and lowers blood pressure. All good stuff. But what really surprised me is this little device has been adding muscle to my biceps too. I walk around all day long feeling pumped. Check them out at happyliving.com and select Partners in Happy for $50 off. Plus, for every order placed in the month of January, I'll donate $50 to WITV7 and another $50 to Life Vest Inside.
And we're back with JJ Virgin, and I'm so excited. These tips are actually wonderful, and I love the fact that you're reminding me of these like simple things I can do to just swap out my foods. Especially like I remember back in the day when I was sitting there having to rice my own cauliflower, and I love the fact I don't think I've done it myself in years because it was such a pain in the butt. It actually really wasn't a pain in the butt. I'm just lazy, but now I just go buy it frozen, and it takes like very little time.
I know. And the great news about having things like that in your freezer, because you really want to look at how do I stock my fridge, freezer, and pantry so that I never get in trouble. I will tell you, Betsy, I remember when I was on Dr. Phil, I had to go to this gal's house to restock her house because she couldn't lose weight, but she had no food in the house. And the way she was going to handle not eating was to put no food in the house. Well, here's what she did. At about 11 o'clock at night, guess where she went?
Yep, go out to go get food.
Right. She'd go to either the drive-through or the gas station. Neither of those really would be my like top choice of like, where should we go find healthy food? And then she stashed things in her glove compartment of her car and in her bedroom, in like her bureau drawers. I go, okay, just because it's not in your kitchen doesn't mean it's not like, it's just like, I'll stand up and eat, it won't count. So it's really important to get the right foods in there. And gosh, you can so stock up your freezer. I think the pandemic showed us that. Like we were in there, we had stashes of peppers and mushrooms and cauliflower rice and riced broccoli and great clean protein so that you can make you just come home, you can make a dinner quickly. And literally you can make a dinner in 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's so much better. And especially with all the products that are out there nowadays. Like I remember in the past trying to find something gluten-free was next to impossible. Right. But yeah, so when you're talking about sugars, and there's hidden sugars and things that we don't think of because we go, okay, we know sugar's not good for you, but what other things should we be looking out for when it comes to sugar?
And the crazy stats are right at the turn of the 19th century, we were eating on average 5 pounds of sugar per person a year. And at the turn of the 20th century, it was 150 pounds of sugar per person per year. At the turn of the 19th century, there wasn't any obesity. It was like 0.2% or something crazy versus now we've got 70% obese or overweight, more obese than overweight. And I think it's now like 4% morbidly obese. That is just insane. And here's what's crazy. We're eating less table sugar than ever. And in fact, when I wrote the Sugar Impact Diet, I went to the store and I go, okay, I'm going to get those sugar cubes to do the really cute little thing. I couldn't find any. There weren't there. However, we're eating more sugar than ever. What gives? It's just what you talked about. Sugar is sneaking into places you would never expect. It is crazy that you would get a low-fat, light raspberry vinaigrette thinking that you're going to do great because you're going to go have a salad, not knowing that when you pour that light raspberry vinaigrette on your salad, you just turned your salad into a sundae because of all the crazy hidden sugars in there. Same with marinara sauce. It can have more sugar than a serving of Oreo cookies. And none of us are sitting down and going, I'm going to be good today. I'm having Oreo cookies, right? Or walking through the line at Starbucks and going, I'm going to be good today. So I'm going to have the healthy morning muffin and I'll have the skinny latte, not realizing that the healthy morning muffin actually has more sugar than 2 Hostess cupcakes. So we have to be super duper aware. And the bigger challenge is, and this is really frustrating, is that the labels lie. And so you really have to know what you're looking for there, because one of the things that labels can do is they can put no sugar added. This is legal. You can put no sugar added on the label and use fruit juice concentrate to sweeten something. Well, apple juice concentrate has more fructose than high fructose corn syrup. So just because it's all natural, like honey, doesn't mean that it doesn't tell your body, hey, you just had sugar. Because to your body, once it's in your mouth, it's all the same stuff. And it's going to raise your blood sugar, raise your insulin, and tell your body to store fat, especially around your waistline, not burn it.
That is crazy. I didn't realize that about the no sugar added.
I know.
It's
Makes me
really
very upset. Well, because people are trying their hardest, and mom goes to the store and she gets the yogurt for the kids, and it says no sugar added, fruit on the bottom, right? But it's garbage because it's apple juice concentrate, or the fruit leathers, or all this stuff. By the way, dried fruit is candy, and jam is syrup, and fruit juice is soda. Just think of it like that. Have real fresh fruit.
That's something I'm battle with my kids all the time. Like if they're in the supermarket with me, they're always like pointing to these fruit snacks. And I'm like, guys, that is no different than candy. They're like, no, Mom, it's fruit. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, see this apple? This is fruit.
Yes.
This little apple snack in the package with the jelly thing, that's not fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. What about motivation for exercise? How do you find that?
Well, I think one of the things that you need to do with that is just, get started and start simple. And what we measure and monitor, we can improve. So I'm really big on tracking, whether it's a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, whatever. Just decide, you know what, I'm going to start tracking this in my journal. In fact, journals, when you look at it, what are the most important things you can do in a diet? It's like the biggest determinant of diet success, writing it down and keeping weight off, weighing it every day, writing it down. And exercise, just get started. The first thing that you do is you just move more and you track it. And you just say, okay, every day I'm just to move a little bit more until I consistently see that I'm moving an hour's worth a day, which, by the way, it all counts. But in order for it to really count as exercise, you have to get hot and sweaty, and it should hurt a bit. The cool thing is it doesn't have to be for long. It can literally be, 10 to 15 minutes of big movements. But you start just by literally measuring and monitoring it. Super important.
Sometimes I find with my patients, they're like, oh, I can't exercise because my knees hurt, or like I have difficulty walking. And I try to tell them it doesn't matter what part of your body is moving, move whatever you can move. So if it means move your arms up and down, then do that.
You do whatever you have to do. Those excuses never worked for me. When I was 17, I was a point ballerina. I'm 6 feet tall. That's ridiculous. And my body thought so too. I tore my ACL. So I've had knee problems that resulted in a total knee replacement a couple of years ago, my whole life. And so people would start this whole hem-haw of why they can't do it. And I'm like, listen, I'd go get knee surgery, come back, get on the Schwinn Airdyne, use my arms and one leg. You can find a way, right? Winners find ways. So you just ask, what can I do to exercise? And you figure it out. Because it is like, if you look at the single most important thing to keep weight off, is going to be exercise. But even more than that, you want to have a good brain. Exercise is like the most important vitamin for your brain is exercise.
Talking about that, there's all these different types of exercise. I remember I was reading your website about how back in the day you were at the leotard and the leg warmers doing aerobics.
I rocked that, my friend.
Which I love. But, is there something that we really like? Is there certain types of exercise we need to be focusing on, like aerobics versus weightlifting versus?
I think there's 4 areas, and I do them in this order. I think this is the order of priority, unless you've got an extenuating situation like you're super stressed, in which case I'd flip it. But for most people, the first thing I have you do is just move more. So the best thing you could do there is get a dog. Then you have to. The second thing is to add in high intensity interval training. And that is where you do an all out movement for 10 to 60 seconds and you recover for twice as long to accumulate 4 to 8 total minutes of bursting. So as you can see, that's like 10 to 15 minutes. So that could be going up the stairs, walking back down them, going up the stairs. It could be jumping rope, jumping jacks, walking, whatever it is. It would be walk, sprint, whatever it is that works for you. Once you've done that, you add in resistance training. And this is so critical for your metabolism. It's the single biggest way you can make sure your metabolism is really working is by doing resistance training so that you hold on to or build muscles, you're losing fat. It's also where you improve insulin sensitivity. And it's also how you make sure that your bones stay healthy. So that's things like push-ups and pull-ups and squats and sit-ups and all of that. And then the other piece of that is flexibility. And in that, I also put mindfulness. So those are things like more of the restorative style of yoga. And those are the 4. And you just add them in like I start and I just build from there. You're moving more, then you add in HIIT training and get that going every other day. On the other days, you do some resistance training. And then you put in yoga like 2 times a week. I even have my husband doing yoga with me.
That is wonderful. So, these tips have been great. Where can people find out more about you?
jjvirgin.com. And we make sure we've got tons of cool stuff there, from my Ask the Health Expert podcast to all of our social media sites, to loads of recipes, etc. So what I really wanted to do, Betsy, was make sure that you have no excuse for not getting going, because all of the information's right there for you.
That is great. I really appreciate it. And I also want to take the time to thank our listeners and our viewers. And if you enjoyed the programming on today's show, then visit wytv7.org and feel free to donate so that we can keep bringing good programming like this to you. Also, if people want to find out more information about me, just go to drbetsygreenleaf.com or follow me on social media. So, wrapping it up. So this is our New Year's special, in that we're going to get ourselves going, eat healthy, get moving. And Jay, did you have any final words to motivate people?
Remember, that first most important resolution is to put yourself first. And that is not being selfish. When you really look at it, when you take care of yourself, it's the most selfless thing you can do, because then you can really be more and show up more for everybody else.
Great. Thank you once again, JJ, for being with us.
Thank you.
And just remind people, follow us again next week, same time, for the Body, Mind, Spirit Show.